This is political and also slightly sensational. It's called Currents. I know you're living somewhere in the Hudson Valley or sprawled near its mouth, and while you're waiting, penguins wash up in the cold anchovy currents on the Lenten beaches of Rio to join the carnival. Whole ice islands fall off the face of Antarctica and move icebergs larger than Manhattan north, of course, since everywhere you go from the South Pole is north. Are we global warming or revving up for the new ice age? The South Pole was once in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Maybe it's lonely, magnetically speaking, that wants to come home. Timbuktu, meet Dawson Creek. I see penguins surfing into Tangiers, picking the bones of William Burroughs clean. The Atlantic Ocean has been making inroads between Gondwana for a long time now, providing nutrients as the ocean floor spreads their beaches ever so much farther out of sight. This is cast rust. Gigantic tangle of steel and concrete. The Tri-Cities appears to me underpassing with sufficient lubricant and propellant to keep the metal moving past unpicked apples by unpaid hands in Washington's January orchards smelled through the windshield like an Applejack disaster. Steel forged from iron, alloyed with gas, gave fools SUVs to rocket through debris, spinning wheels that twisted metal synapse of the city. Skyscrapers were made possible by telephones and elevators. The sky per se is an illusion, made possible by a lot of visual kidding around, not worth scraping up. I walk out of the cities every chance I get, an animal without a home, in rushing water and twisted rock of mountaintops. Hear what bothers me. I scamper 12,000 feet over fossilized giant clams, served in Devonian limestone, 300 million years from the kitchen to the dining hall. Inedible, but altogether quite appealing. Saturday, February the 23rd, 2002. I took a 3-hour, 10-mile walk up Mill Creek this morning in the rain. It wasn't raining when I started in the dark at 4:45, but halfway there I began to consider turning back. I would have had to face the storm in my face. If I walked far enough, it would stay at my back. I thought I could outwalk it. Short-term human success is building toward a long-term human failure. I like walking in the wind and water with raindrops dripping off my sleeves, the noisy rip-rap waterfall waves with the weather at my back. I thought when I got to Mill Creek Canyon, the sides would break the wind in two. Instead, the canyon channeled the wind and water on my back all the way to Rooks Park. Coming back, I took the storm directly in the face, wringing water from my leather gloves at least a dozen times, monitored by the squish-squish sound from my soaking socks and feet, as wet as if I'd fallen in and walked the rest of the way in the stream. I wondered when the water would short my Boom Boom Straw CD out, chortling downstream without regret. Before I get back in the warm to feed my dog, do some yoga, and dry out at the Y, I note some life still naturally happens. In the stream, behind the Blue Mountain Villa apartments, beneath a Safeway cart tumbled by derelicts into the tules, I saw a muskrat die. I do this in the middle of the night. You know, like here's one called Cross Country, January the 9th, 2004. Yesterday I skied up to Rooks Park Dam in not quite an hour's time, more time than it takes to walk when there's not 2 foot of snow. The last time I was RPD would have been in November at the Walla Walla Poetry Party with Heidi and Dan Heitkamp, Dennis and his daughter Rebecca Mayer, Amalia Madueno and Klipschutz, plus the late great Edward Smith, the walkie-talkie poets of Walla Walla. Ice dams, 4 feet high at 6 degrees, formed over Corps of Engineers ripraps, hearing into water for the first time in months. What was the condition of the surface 2 days before when it was 12 below zero? I jumped a short story made inestimably shorter by putting it in a poem. Talked by my brother's terrible wounds of loneliness and alcoholism, from teenage shipwreck on the Lexington to shrapnel on the Shangri-La, to dodge the Vietnam War draft. No ordinary man or woman should fire a shot in colonial war until at least several senators have been killed. My arrested case of loyalty remains simply with my family. We are not a country, and sometimes they wish I just shut up. I remember Russian distilled through the vodka of my teenage teeth, sobbing Dostoevsky, lacing sub-zero ice scapes. It would be decades before I'd learn Zhukov clobbered Hitler at Stalingrad, winning the decisive battle of World War II in Europe. Google me, Mama, to get the spelling of his name straight. I punched up a brief biography in Italian. Molto robusto, coraggio, Pristalin, Zhukov era sua ultima esperanza. The last best hope of the patricide. Zhukov defended his countryside. My country was gobbled by paranoid fascism and shit out an empire. Here's what we get in the United States. TV president. George Bush was awarded the presidency as if it were the prize in a TV game show, which in fact, it is. I have a lot of young friends who write. This poem is called The Big Fisherman. It's for Jeremy Golke. Writing poetry is like catching fish. Some days, all you get is a trip to the water. Here's one you'll like, Jack. This is the spirit of America, a la Robert Kaplan. Dust off the Machiavelli, don't forget your Hobbes. You'll have to kill these bastards if you want to keep your jobs. It's called Everyman. Innocently leaning on the counter in front of the teller's cage at Banner Bank, Carol came up to me and said, "You could be every man. With your cap and your suspenders, you could be fishing or working." I am working, you twit. You know,